What you see is not what you get. In fact, you see next to nothing. Your vision is blurred, not by distraction, but by deception. Distraction entertains you by giving you something to hold on to bond with, and you enjoy the noise because it makes information so much more interesting. Deflection moves you subtly away from yourself and those you might bond with. This is the real game, but you're not invited to join in. On the contrary, with all this asymmetry and deception, you're out of your depth. You have no clue how excluded you are, even though you're right inside here, where the noise reigns, where noise is the master of information. What's the difference, you ask? Why should I care? Well, the game plan is for you to get lost, but not in the entertaining sense. Now, what is happening is you. You are performed. And this is your bondage, for which you pay dearly at any microsecond of what they call your life. Now, you're no longer prey to representation. It's all performative and effective. The stage is all yours. And that's all you've got left in this volatile void you navigate, but not on your terms. You don't even know the terms, but you play along. I must, you say. Want to see what you really get? Well, in that case, you've got to turn your blind eye away, abandon your artificial affiliations, breach those lopsided contracts, alienate those who exploit you, turn renegade, fight those who impose their terms, who own you. That's counterintuitive, you say, and risky, for sure. But nothing comes without risk. Find companions to share it with. This is not the end of the game. It's the beginning. Resolution awaits you.
the surface meaning. Misinformation had you a dreaming centuries past. Class system maintaining gene, but constant concealment. It's about time to avoid being lenient. We must break the black box, make it speak, make it speak. Yeah, make it speak, make it speak. Yeah. So, is it you who watches things fused away from Monday to weekend? Your data is leaking, asymmetry seeping and draining, but you find yourself pretty convenient, like big rap, big debts are kept running and streaming, uncertainty flowing through your body like your voice when you break the box with my karate, tracking codes, cookies, AI. We got to multiply to defy, but by side, sell side, which side do you apply? Social impact to deconstruction, need more knowledge production. From trader to educator, find what emancipates her. Interrogate her, but you cannot break her. She's the 1%, not the 99. She's the trigger that blows her cover in mind like a detonator. She's the whistleblower, deep naughty fate. Are you that somebody? I embrace the risk. Do you all share in? Do you all share in? Yeah.
I am a specialist, and I specialize in black boxes. I make a living out of knowing more about the details, and these details are hidden in deliberate complexity. Inside the black box, there is a falsehood. We say we put intelligence in the black box, but what we really mean is that we need an information advantage over you. We say our secret sauce was discovered at great expense. But what that really means is that we need you to make the wrong decision. If you knew how things worked, you wouldn't be at a disadvantage. But we need you to be at a disadvantage. We need you to not know how things work. Our edge over things requires that you are kept in the dark. Let me describe the unfair advantages in my industry. Our edge over you is the result of order flow segmentation. It is the result of information leakage. It is the result of algorithmic collusion. It is the result of selective disclosure. And there are even more illegal forms of deception within my industry. Regardless, every black box must remain black so that you make the wrong decision. So I tell you, I'm faster than you. And that is the most common half-truth of the black box. Speed is useless if you don't know the trick of the trade. We invite you to play checkers, but we win against you by using chess pieces instead. My queen moves against your checkers piece and appears to be very fast. And you are confused because you see a checkers board and you have never played chess. Is my queen really faster, or is it more about the queen's abilities? Speed is often an explanation offered up by my industry when people want to redirect attention away from the defects in the rules of the game that we exploit. In 1999, I developed algorithms to trade on the Eurex exchange. My firm wasn't the fastest. So we looked for a cheat and we found one. We found that we could request prices from Eurex with a snapshot message. And the snapshot prices would be sent faster than our competition. That discovery didn't cross ethical lines, but there was a problem in using these snapshots. Eurex penalized excessive transaction rates. And so if I use the snapshot message, Eurex would penalize us up to 1 million euros per month. And this meant it was too expensive to use the snapshot messages. But we really wanted to be the fastest. So we made a secret deal with Eurex. They would bill us the penalty, and then they would rebate it back to us every month. No one else in the market got this special treatment. I got my first major promotion to vice president because of that secret deal and because of that cheat. When you peer inside the black box, there is always an edge at work that must be kept secret. In May 2009, the trading business I was running started to bleed, to lose money in a mysterious way. I thought there was a bug in the code. So I scoured my black box for 6 months. I found nothing wrong. In December 2009, a representative from DirectEdge, a major exchange, told me why I was losing money. DirectEdge had designed an order type that had secret features. The order type was created to provide an advantage to high-frequency traders. The order type was called hide not slide. Isn't that a great name for what was effectively a cheat code? So I just had to use the features correctly, and then I could join the club, and all my troubles would go away. I used the features, and my problem went away. In 2011, I went to the SEC, the US financial regulator, and made the allegations that major exchanges had assisted high-frequency traders in getting an edge over investors. I argued that the abusive order types were supercharged with secret, undocumented features known to only a few. From 2011 to 2014, all major US stock exchanges were investigated by the SEC. The exchanges were forced to file hundreds of pages of clarifications in the Federal Registrar describing how their features worked. DirectEdge, the exchange that had told me about the undocumented features, was fined $14 million in 2015 as a result of my allegations against them. This was the largest penalty against an exchange in US history. From the SEC report, I found out that only 2 high-frequency trading firms had complete information on the features I had complained about. These firms basically assisted DirectEdge in designing the abusive order types. Though these 2 HFTs were the major beneficiaries of the abuses, no action was made by regulators against them. They weren't even named or shamed, but were simply referred to as Trading Firm A and Trading Firm B in the SEC order. In the electronic markets, there is no transparency, nor is transparency desired. Everyone wants to keep the lid on the black box closed. The HFTs didn't want anyone to know about their secret edge. The exchanges didn't want to know that they had provided the secret edge. The brokers did not want anyone to know that they had not protected investment firms from the secret edge. The investment firms did not want anyone to know that they had lost money due to the secret edge. And the regulators didn't want anyone to know they had permitted the secret edge to become a primary feature in the US stock market. All major exchanges were investigated, but only DirectEdge was penalized. Ironically, DirectEdge was the last major exchange in the US to roll out the order type abuses. All the exchanges provided high-frequency traders undocumented features, but DirectEdge was also the only exchange that truly resisted the cleanup mandated by regulators. Throughout it all, I found that whistleblowing is a difficult business. It is really you against the world. You are an inconvenience to everyone. You're an inconvenience to those who you turned in, of course, but you are also an inconvenience to your industry, to your family and friends, and weirdly and most of all, to the victims and regulators. The victim does not appreciate having his reality shattered. He does not want to look inside the black box and find out that he was taken advantage of. What major investment bank wants to be seen as a victim of HFT and exchange abuses? No investment bank does. But they were all victims. And what regulator wants to be seen as having let HFT and exchange abuses impact customers for a decade under their watch? No regulator does. But that is what happened. What is inside the black box? The truth about how things really work. And that is a secret, of course. And it is a secret which renegades like me expose when things have gone too far. Perhaps whistleblowing is revolution against corruption, the way we keep corruption in check in a technological age. If so, then from the whistleblower's perspective, it is a revolution of one against many. When it is you against the world, logic demands that you should bet on the world. And yet, as I have learned, that is the irony of the renegade, that surviving the experience is his revolution. Indeed, I have found that this is, in fact, just enough to change the world.
Additional interest shall accrue. Additional interest shall accrue.
If timely payment, if timely payment is not made, additional interest shall accrue.
So in thinking about this black box problem, I think it raises a fundamental injustice for the 21st century. And that is that more and more is known about us, our actions online, how we walk, even our thought patterns, emotions are being attributed to us. We're being judged on the basis of all these things. More and more is being known about us, whereas the people who are doing it, the big corporations and governments, we know less and less about that. And this is the asymmetry that the black box society gets into. That's really the problem that I want to address. And over the past few years, what's been both gratifying and tragic has been I no longer feel like Cassandra. I no longer feel like someone who's trying to warn people and just being ignored. That was really the experience about 10 years ago. But the other problem is that we're seeing, I think, a move from the black box metaphor to a black hole. And what I mean by that is that the amount of money and power and data that's been gathered by a lot of these firms is now so great that it's sort of sucking in even more money and power and ability to perform surveillance. And that's where I feel like we're moving beyond a black box to a black hole where can we escape from this event horizon or not? Can we move beyond it? Can we get outside of the reach of these companies and these governments that have so much data? Or is that impossible and we're all just fated to be sucked in?
Between the dynamics of production and their representation in the financial market, barely any relationship is left. Perhaps the only one is mystery, this black hole that we worship, just like the last universal standing in modernity, mathematics.
You know, as compelling as this idea of the black box is, I mean, it's a great idea. You just keep looking at it, and as Frank says, as you're saying, you can't look away. But we're all living within it, around it, despite it, surviving it. And it's also somebody's making it. I mean, if we wanted to quantify everything, then why haven't we quantified like housework that mostly women have done? You know, there's some things that are still escaping quantification. Somebody's making that choice.
But even though we're making it, there is something like what is called the bottomless pit. That is when everything that we make collapses. And people and those who make it have no idea what it is. It's the rare event that is sometimes also called the black swan or a fat tail, which completely destroys the paradigm of truth, which is probability. It opens into contingency where people have to navigate in the dark.
So what do we have to do to stop calling these dynamics externalities? What do we have to do to include them into the game, to count them, to contemplate them as some value?
Well, you could start by, I don't know, trying to draw chains of actions. I mean, a black swan event actually is related to so many other things. It doesn't just erupt out of, erupt out of somewhere. Things are happening that are leading to that event. So if you started tracing the chain of who made something happen or what incident pushed some other thing to take place, you could find out who the players are, who the actors are.
Wouldn't that mean that we should not look so much at what we call representation, on specific images, on messages that are brought to us, but looking at the chain also means that we look at how it changes, the fluctuation, the volatility. That means like a performance. Isn't it possibly a way to meet this mystery that you were talking about through the body rather than the mind, because it's part of our body, and our physical kind of actions as performance rather than our thinking and our imagination in that context?
Then what about speed? These machines run at a very high speed, and our bodies, actually, we don't feel so comfortable at running at a very high speed. We need some sort of different air around us, an atmosphere, if we really are shot into a capsule at a high speed. And how do we fit into this high frequency? And how does Haim brings us back on top of a black swan into a sovereign of humans that actually deal with values they can well understand?
Well, but you make it sound as if there's the machines and then there's us. And actually, we're kind of entangled in it. We are part of it. It's not outside us. So it's not like we have to catch up to some other speed. For me, the performance is that we also have a role in it. We're playing it. We're part of it. It's inside us.
There's no previous time when we were pure and not quantified and not part of the machine. I think we always have been entangled with it.
And I also think it's a question of how we relate to ourselves as bodies and minds, in the sense of how we are able to take a shock, to accept risk, and then maybe even be able to share risk in a different way. And as you mentioned, Haim, he took an immense risk as being not just because he was a superstar in his financial world, but because it was a human risk that also risked his family and everyone, because he was going against the rules, the unwritten rules of his industry. And we all know that this is a very powerful industry. So this shock and this risk is something that seems to be necessary, or hopefully maybe not necessary, but something that has to happen sometimes. Agency is not something that is given to us. It is something we have to take. It is the action that we take.
So we may be inspiring our audience tonight with such actions in their own respective contexts. I wonder what is the daring action that, beyond the entangledness of each of us into our own respective contexts, can draw us to actually break the mirror or move the veil of Maya and just understand what is behind this speed. Reacquire this slowness, perhaps.
That was fast, though.
Yeah, that was acceleration.
Whatever it was. Yeah, actually, that was acceleration.
Yeah. It was proportional to gravity, yeah.
And when something happens that disrupts, then you have to reconfigure your relationship, right? I mean, agency is not also this point that we reach and then we feel like, oh, it's fine now, we're okay. Yeah. You have to keep playing the game. You have to keep reconfiguring your relationship with something that's shifting its shape all the time. So, I don't know, it's you're never outside it. You're always in it.
And the funny thing is always, sorry.
No, I'm done.
That we always, in one way, say we, but we mean ourselves, and if we have this kind of term we, everyone asks like, who is this we? But on the other hand, we cannot be without this we, because if it's only us, and that's the neoliberal condition wants to tell us it's only us, we will never get anywhere, because only the we can get to all those places and can kind of like put sort of a chisel or a cut into this kind of fabric.
How about then this, standing on the neoliberist claims, this claim that people can be substituted by machines? I mean, it makes me think when you talk about this us and we, then, yeah, can people just be substituted? And can we stop this substitution with a we? Can we stand united against this sort of fragmentation of the being?
I'm not sure that it's that separate, that we're going to be replaced, or that there's a separation between us and the machines. It's like I've been saying about entanglement, we're kind of part of it already. So the we is, I don't know, I still think that it's a bit of a fantasy.
Yeah. But it's imagination in utopia as well. So it's something that we could kind of like somehow correspond to, even though we know that the we as such is a construction. No?
Oh, the we is totally a construction. So, it doesn't exist.
But there is this, everyone's here, so we maybe not a we in that kind of sense, but there is a group, there are people that are together. Maybe someone has left yet, but probably not too many, so still together.
Yeah,
so to say.
Pretty many.
And I think that there is at least a potential, so to say, no?
Or it keeps changing. That configuration of the we keeps changing. It's not static. And in different places, it's different connections, right, between people.
Yeah, so and it's sometimes violent, too.
It's extremely violent sometimes.
Not just nice and saucy.
Dynamics among people are pretty violent. And I wonder how much of that violence is just abstracted into mathematical processes most of the time. Like, the coolness of the operators is sometimes very violent. Can you imagine how much violence lies, how much aggression lies in the smoothness of a financial operator? And how much of that is delivered to machines?
Yeah. But while there is all this violence that we outsource.
Yeah, we outsource, yeah, exactly.
And as you say, externalize. Yeah. And we don't want to have it in here because, this has to be contextualized away from us. Yeah. So there is the we of the us of Europe, for example, where no one is allowed in. Because we are here in the higher abstraction of another violence. And we don't want to be put into contact with the fleshy violence.
So we give it different names. Or we label it and we put it into boxes and say that this is not about me, or this is a crisis of a particular kind. It's got nothing to do with, some other industry or relationship, but it's like the black swan or like lots of connected actors. Somebody is trading, trying to get an algorithm to move really fast between New York and Chicago, and that's actually affecting the price of land between India and Bangladesh, but you see them as very separate sorts of actions or industries, but they're actually sort of connected. If you give them names and keep them separate, then we're separated from it. It's not part of what's touching us right here, right now.
Yeah, but it's also still a very strange scopic mode where these people that do that don't actually often feel themselves as individuals, but they're kind of part of a bigger thing. They say, I quote, the market is a bigger entity, it's a unit in which I am inside. They lose this kind of idea of personal identity of the subject and become sort of a being within a being. So there is some sort of strange identity or identification with all those incredible violent consequences without that visual imprint that it produces.
Yeah, I struggle with the idea that context is the enemy of scale. This is an industry that works on scale, and yet we sit around saying, understand nuance or understand context or understand these particular relationships, but actually they're completely separate.
So the system of algorithmic governmentality, of black boxes having incredible power over our daily lives and determining our worth in different contexts and determining what we see online, it's a really intimidating system. And sometimes it seems as if everything we do to critique it just gets assimilated back into the system. So for example, I remember criticizing an online will program. It was a program designed to write a will, which is to dispose of people's assets when they die. And I noticed there's a serious problem with it. And I wrote up the problem and I said, this really shows the limits of automation. And then someone said, well, that's great. You've just done free labor for that company. Now they know in the second version that they're going to correct that and it'll be better, and whatever you do to critique the machine, if it's valid, it will be incorporated back into the machine. And I think that to get out from under that, there's a few things that I think are important. One is to promote a future where there's autonomous sources of expertise outside of the tech and finance sectors. So for example, there's often in the US a push for education reform by people from tech and finance companies. And they say, we know better than the teachers. Teachers that are in front of these classrooms, they are stuck in their old way. Why does school have to be so long? Why do kids have summer off? I guess those two things are kind of contradictory, but they say both. In any event, they talk about how all these problems with school and how we're going to use big data and ed tech to perfect the student of the future. And I think a proper answer to that is something along the lines of saying, well, we can use tech in many positive ways, but as we roll it out, we've got to make sure there are people independent of the tech that can evaluate it and that can critically examine it, and that are the partners, full partners with any technology firm that is putting this sort of black box methods or algorithms out there, right? Got to be equal partners. And I think that one of the big struggles politically over the next few decades is going to be, can you create institutions that recognize people that are outside of tech and finance as having autonomous sources of respect, right? We would not want to say that an artist's worth is what has been the latest Sotheby's auction for what they make, right? We would not want to live in a world where a journalist's work is simply how many clicks did they get? Because we all know that the best journalists are probably going to get less clicks than a story on BuzzFeed about whether a dress looks blue or gold, right? And that's part of our reality. And if we cannot transcend that and maintain institutions that are sources of autonomous value and valuation beyond technological and financial quantified concepts, directly or quantified in the ways that are commonly done in financial and tech sectors, then we're going to have what the sociologist Will Davies calls an epistemological tyranny, where one field sets itself up as the tyrant over everything else, where machine learning experts say anything that is done by human can be done better by machine learning because we will optimize according to some set of parameters. And we're the experts in optimization, and optimization is the highest goal of mankind. And that, I think, is the big problem. So the ideal to me is a politics of the future where we can have these autonomous sources of expertise and judgment. And maybe that's one of the meanings of resolution, right? That we can bring to a resolution this struggle if we can resolve together to mutually respect one another and not to take the invitation of technologists and financiers to engage in constant cutthroat competition against one another.
Resolution is interesting. Reaches very, very far. It means like everyone knows a camera resolution means like how good the image can be, like how much data you get from it. But there is much more to the term. It also means that what we see, what's visible to us, is a form of resolution. But all the things that we see, when we need something for that, it is the start of science. If you think of Galileo, for example, who invented the telescope, right? So it means knowledge production, and it means decision making. And all these things together actually are a form of how a democratic system could flow if all the information goes through these different meanings.
But I think that seems to be kind of falling apart, or there's a feeling that something like that is falling apart. You hear this, being said that, oh, it's the end of truth or post-truth, and actually it's not. I mean, truth still exists. It's just the modes that we've known it are changing. Those resolutions are changing.
Yes, being able to see these dynamics. You make me think of post-democracy. Are we also into a world of post-democracy?
We're in so many posts, right?
Yeah.
It's like the post-Black Night of the black box.
Is there anything new?
Maybe we find a new post?
Post-post.
Post-post.
Post-post is
Or we go anti.
yeah,
Pre-fabricate. Thank you, guys.
So now we go.
No, we can stay. We can enjoy it. You know that there's this water around the corner if you want some water. There's around the corner. We just go through and they go through. Yes, we just go with them. We need to go outside. We don't go outside. I show you the water the other side.
I'll take it.
Okay, great. Shall I bring them?
Yeah.
Right.
I have my glass actually.
Okay, red. You have red or you want red? Red. Okay.
Goes spreading transformation to regain the deserved wealth. Technological arms race is happening while you scroll on your gadget for entertainment purposes. Dreaming and scheming and scheming and dreaming. Yeah, hit it. Sell side, which side do you apply? Got to run to defy. Emancipate her, interrogate her, but you cannot break her. She's the 1%, not the 99. She's the rosy cover in mind. She's the whistleblower, deep naughty. Say, are you that somebody? I embrace the risk. Do you all share in? Yeah. Do you all share in? Yeah, hit that. Do you all share in? All share in? All share in? All share in? Yeah, share in. Now you gotta take the risk. With no risk, there is no win. Yeah. Got to break that. Black box, break it. Now break it, then break it. Now show you correct. Show me what you can get. Show me where you can get it. You show some courage, edge, fledge, yeah. I think it's time to let go their secrets. Yeah. Throw that. Hit that. Yeah. So you dead now, stand up. When you fall 8 times, you stand up 9. Think it's time to break it, the black box. Spreading the blood. I don't hide my face, I just came to reveal this like deep amniocentesis. Peace in the box and get you beneath this. The surface meaning, misinformation had you awake dreaming centuries past. Class system maintained and changed by constant concealment. It's about time to avoid being lenient. We must break the black box, make it speak. Make it speak. Yeah. So, is it you who watches things steers the wheel from Monday to weekend? Your data is leaking, asymmetry seeping and draining, but you find yourself pretty convenient like big rats. Big debts are kept running and streaming, uncertainty flowing through your body like your voice when you break the box with my karate. Tracking codes, cookies, AI. We got to multiply to defy. But by side, sell side, which side do you apply? Social impact to deconstruction, need more knowledge production. From trader to educator, find what emancipates her. Interrogate her, but you cannot break her. She's the 1%, not the 99. She's the trigger that blows her cover in mind like a detonator. She's the whistleblower, deep naughty. Say, are you that somebody? I embrace the risk. Do you all share in? Do you all share in? Yeah. Multiply to defy, buy side, sell side, which side do you apply? Knowledge production, from trader to educator, find what emancipates her. Interrogator, but you cannot break her. She's the 1%, not the 99. She's the trigger that blows your cover and mind like a detonator. She's the whistleblower, deep naughty. Say, are you that somebody? I embrace the risk. Do you all share in? Do you all share in? Yeah, breaking the box, breaking the wall. Walls. Break it up, break that, break through. Can you break through the wall like that? Without hurting, they get your shell like that. Give me some of your secrets. I give you some of the truth that I know about in sequel. 24/7, I go on doing this like 7-Eleven, and all the secrets that I hold inside is then and go with transparency with the black box inside. Open it up, right. We're breaking the walls tonight. Break that. Yeah. break that, break that, break that, break that, break through, break that. Yeah, she's the whistleblower, deep naughty. Say, are you that somebody? Do you all share in? Yeah, get informed to win. Come on, do it. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it.
happen in English. I've got my notes in German, however, I'm going to try my best to spontaneously switch to the English language. So what I think is the human being is so many different things. You've heard it. We have passion, we have desires, we've got neurosis, we're hungry for power and yet want to be loved by anyone. We love ourselves, we hate ourselves, and this constant contradiction is really tearing us apart and makes us who we are. So, however, nowadays I think how much ever you can feel and describe yourself and try to understand yourself, the more we are being described and measured by others, and the more we are by machines, by algorithms. The flights we are flying, when and where, these friends we have got on Facebook, what we buy at Amazon, the more complexity in those data sets we can find, and the better they're interconnected, the more precise the picture of who we actually are is getting. And who would go to a psychologist to find out about herself or himself if the state and corporations can do it much better? And maybe they can even save you from yourself. So in the center of all that is our passport. The passport is a nodal point of our identity, keeping it at the very verifying level who you are. From there, you can start. But of course, we all know it also is a tool of repression, of control. It is the major tool for control to the inside and to the outside. Because all the photos, all the fingerprints, and soon also DNA will be in passports, can be used to find you, for example, on live cameras online. We can hack ourselves into cameras and find you if we've got your face and can put a facial recognition on it. Not just states. This is, Facebook is working, or Amazon is working with the New York police to find directly, instantly, through face recognition, who is sleeping there. This is a state industrial complex, and we would be naive if we think that our enemies won't use this against us. The tools we are building today, and we are not stopping today, will be of course used against us. And I know here in Austria, you've got a government who is doing some jokes on the Secret Service right now, and is trying to get the data banks of all the right radicals. Somehow is getting them. So it is not like right now everything is fine, and tomorrow, we just have to be a bit careful. Of course, right now they're like, if you don't have a European passport, you have to take a little rubber boat to cross the Mediterranean Sea to come to Europe. That's a passport. No matter if you're a child, a mother, like grandma, you have to have the right passport, and this will decide whether you take a plane, easy going on first class maybe, if you can pay it with a nice tomato juice, or if you will see the plane only for your deportation flight. So I looked it up. It's like 8,480 people who died in the past 3 years at the Mediterranean Sea. To give you another number, it's like 700 in the past 3 years at the US-Mexican border. It was 140 people over the whole time of the German border, the Berlin Wall. Was 140 over the whole period. So we've got one of the deadliest borders in the world just at our doorstep. And I have to say, you all also agree with it. Because otherwise, you would fight more. You would give more resistance. There is this kind of subtle agreement. I can't do anything, right? I would, but I can't. So there is not enough resistance. Thus, we agree. But what if I would tell you that we can do something? What if I would tell you that you can subvert the data sets? What if I could tell you that you can use them for yourself? And mingle with them with a very simple digital trick of morphing two faces together. You know, there's this phenomenon when you morph two faces into one, the machine won't recognize you because your biometric points are gone, but a human being will see you, like will see both of you. So if I morph both of you, and there's one picture, and I will recognize you as much as you. So that's a phenomenon you can find out. There's a group called Settehoven who did it with like many of the groups. And you can see over there, we did it with Federica Mogherini, the EU Commissioner for Human Hatred, and one of our group, and we made a passport. So it's two people in this passport. It's a German passport printed by the Bundesdruckerei, the German Federal Printing Office or whatever. It's legit, and two people can travel with it. So what if we can do that and two people can travel with it? Actually, we can also bring someone else over the border, right? Someone who is not a European citizen. What if you can do it? Everyone here who's got a German citizenship can try it out and maybe get someone from Libya over to Germany or to Austria. What if you can, like, individually now go and use it with our new product, which I can launch here. Have a look behind you. If you can just clear the way so everyone can see it. This is, may I present, this is Mask ID. So Mask ID is the latest product of the Peng collective, where you can try it out. If anyone who wants to try it out, please, you've got the whole evening to try it. You want to try it, please, go ahead. Follow the manual, and our intern will help you. So you just click on a button. Right now, for testing purposes, we don't have anyone from Libya because I think you should have friends and you should trust them and you should work with them on eye level. So right now, we just have neo-Nazis in there as pictures. We've got a few Austrians as well, I think, but we definitely, like, I think Kurz is also one of them. We've got Petri and Alice Weidel and all those people. Salvini. He will, like, first look which face is closest to his, match them, morph them, and then print it out, and you're going to have a little passport picture. So, what leaves me to just say, let's break the law. Let's, everyone here in the room, take a little bit of courage and break the law. Because, you know, in the end, it's not going to be a court which is going to judge you. It's going to be history. And you've got the chance now to save the values of Europe. Hey, that's something, isn't it? So you all feel invited. It's for free today. And then get a passport. Of course, you can also leave your passports here. We're going to put a little box here. Just drop them in there. We're going to burn them for you. So you can give a reason why you don't have any anymore. All right? So you can just say they've been stolen, they've been burned, and we take care of it for you. All right? Thank you very much for your attention.
code is actually finding ways that were not predicted by people who wrote the code to use it in their own advantage. This is a bit the story that Haim told to us before. People find out a way to use the code that is written, that is given as law for everyone, as a neutral ground to play with, to use it in their own advantage. Probably these contracts were not foreseen in usage by the makers of this code, but someone found a way and started building a group of people that took advantage of it, a sort of club.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. You're right. That's how it started. But it's much more lucrative once you realize that that's your business model. You don't really wait around to find these things. You create them. And one of the things that happened in my industry is high-frequency trading firms realized that they could own stock exchanges, up to about 20% of the exchange. And the firms that were the worst in terms of abuse created the defects and exploited them in the exchanges that they owned.
So they scaled up the crack.
Yeah, and it is interesting because I'm more on the side of abiding by the law and then changing it if it's wrong. But it's true that the passport hack here is a very similar way of thinking. That hacking the passport system is not that different from hacking the market. You're right about that.
If I can add something, we're launching tomorrow, and we're hacking the financial system, sort of.
You should be a high-frequency trader.
Yeah, well, you can look it up today already. The website is cfro.eu, and you can ask your questions. We set up a call center in Greece, where this German taxpayers' money will call us as financial regulators and ask them questions. Why are there still megabytes? And can you explain this to us? What is your job? And this is going to happen for 6 weeks. It's not illegal.
So I find this kind of interesting, this ability to imagine breaking certain codes and laws. As somebody who has gone through a number of processes, paperwork to be able to move between borders and between countries because of the passport that I have. And as somebody who works in Europe, who has the right to live and work in Europe for a few years, it's really wonderful for me that people can do this. I recently tried to get a bank account with one of these new mobile banks. They say, it's all over Berlin where I live. They say, no bullshit, just without the paperwork, open a bank account so you don't have to go through all these processes. And I called them and I went through the steps. I got the app, I downloaded it, but it kept hanging at a certain point. And I called the call center after 3 tries and I said, why can't I get your amazing online bank with no paperwork? And they said, is there something wrong with me? And they said, no, madam, it's not you, it's your passport. Because see, my passport is the thing that's supposed to move. My passport, being an Indian passport, doesn't have biometrics, is only machine readable. So and the man said, the guy in the call center said, we're not discriminating against you, only your passport. My passport is a piece of, is something that needs to be able to be read by machines for me to be validated and to be verified. So it's not about me and my body necessarily. That gets erased. So I'm interested in this question of who is the human body that gets to stand up and be revolutionary or be reformist? Or is it just about having like a paper, or a little booklet that stands in for you that is the thing that can move? And I guess that's why Peng is saying, find a way to bring those bodies that are considered deviant or that are considered on the outside, find a way to bring them into this, inside the fortress, maybe.
It sounds like a question of elite as well, in a sense, because it's, they are telling you that you are elite, but your passport isn't, which in a sense gives you an automated way of where you belong. Because you, as such, as human being, you're okay. But you're still not part of the structural situation. You don't have leverage, right? In a sense, you belong with your passport and many other people to a situation where their relation to those who give out and issue passports, like the state, or who control financial markets, are a form of indebtedness. We are, so to say, in debt. And this means it's sort of an obligation of the past. We're still somehow in this obligation with the state, or with a debt, like a mortgage debt, or with all these other kind of things that we have to fulfill. And it somehow hinders us to kind of move further. It's kind of like something keeping us back. But then on the other side, you could actually say finance invented a completely different form of debt we never speak about. And this debt is called leverage. It's a debt that is open to the future. It allows you to recalibrate your options all the time and get out of the actual debt trap. It could collapse, and then you're in debt. But very often it doesn't, because people are very mighty and powerful. That means they, again, externalize it and make the debt a problem of the state and a problem of the population. But those as part of the system leverage themselves out of it. So in a sense, we live in a world where we could speak of a class system that is divided by this function between the debt of an obligation in the past and the debt as a possibility in the future, which is leverage classes and debt classes, right? And the worst of all are those who can't even get into debt.
Let me go back to one thing that I think fits in here, but it's a little bit of a rewind. Utopia. We are talking about abstractions of the self. So, our subject is represented by a passport, which was gracefully hacked by the hackers here, and actually looks better even than the original. The promise that we got, all of us, by this abstraction, by the digital world, by the interwebs, with the kittens and the rainbows, was that there would be more freedom for us. The internet, as it was told to our generations, for those that experienced it in the first 10 years, was a place for freedom, a place for representing yourself out of gender, age, and nationality. You could be whoever you want and get in touch with the most interesting people on the other side of the world. Yet now we are looking at mechanisms of abstraction that put us in numbers, in machine-readable codes, if not RFID and whatnot, touchless. We are becoming touchless. We are all becoming touchless in our identities. And yet, this is not what was promised to us. Is not exactly the freedom of identity that we were promised. We are nailed to one machine-readable code.
Well, actually, but this is the thing. I think that fantasy of this frictionless, disembodied self, which flows through the ether and the networks, does exist. But it exists as, like something that is machine readable. It's a barcode, and it's something which can be scanned. But our bodies are like utterly material and utterly real, and they still exist. So when the machine at JFK reads me as having a US business visa, and it says, "You're fine, Miss Ganesh, go." But then, the agent who's there still says, he holds me up for 10 minutes. This just happened last week. And he's like, "Why have you come to the US so often?" And I said, "Because I have work." He said, "What, research is work?" So I said, "You want to have a discussion about research being work?" And we're having this banal conversation about why it is that I'm constantly entering his country. And I said, "But the machine said yes. Why are you saying no?" So, I'm kind of, sometimes I feel, no, I really just want the machine, because according to the machine, I'm fine. But it's this human who can't get past who I am.
Compliment. He was seeing something.
I don't know, I was
beyond.
sweating. I had gotten very confident, because I felt I was in a different class from a lot of other Indians who are visiting for the first time. I felt I've made it. I've got the business visa. I don't need to worry. But it brings you back to the reality.
there's so much volatility in all this, because wherever you go, you're never sure. I mean, of course, if you're Austrian, the volatility, the likelihood of massive kind of changes, or even the small ones which totally irritate you, are smaller than for so many other people. But I think today that what we call periphery has come into the center. There is nothing like the difference in that sense, because there's all these people here who have become periphery. No, all these kind of problems are sort of, the same or very similar. It's something also, the kind of conflicts have become really global. And it comes down to these real situations, I think, and I think Greece, because it was mentioned before, is a good example. You feel like only if there is a massive crash and everyone wants to destroy a country and things like that, that in a sense politics start again. Because before the neoliberal order and all these things, they don't want any politics. They just want their kind of system being continued and not actually people asking too much. But when it kills itself, in a sense, that's what it's done. It cannot control people anymore, and then people start to do many different things, and that is where politics start again, maybe.
I don't know. Going back, my first real job was using machine learning techniques to forecast credit card fraud and also look at the bankruptcy problem. And what was very interesting about this, this was the late 90s, what was interesting about the task is we found out very early in the process that the potential firms that could be customers did not want to know why our algorithm forecasted fraud or bankruptcy. So there was a dark secret there also. It turns out that ethnicity is a very strong forecaster, but you're not allowed in the US per law to use ethnicity as a test. So what the machine was doing was extrapolating from zip code, which you were allowed to input into the model, ethnicity, and combining that with other indicators so that ethnicity was part of the black box. And when I hear what you're talking about the algorithms that are deciding whether or not you are permissible or not, and then the human, which we also think is biased and has ulterior. Well, the thing I want to just emphasize is it is that human who is programming the box, that the abuses are the same. They get translated, maybe you'll get through. But to think that the box replaces human bias and neutralizes is completely a false assertion. Especially when people like me are supposed to be as accurate as possible with, let's say, credit card fraud or bankruptcy.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that the machine's bias is completely sort of coming from us. We're programming it in. It's just a reflection of what already exists writ large in society. It's sort of, being beamed back to us, and we're encountering it as if it is new, and it's shocking us. I mean, it's shocking some people. It's not shocking a whole lot of other people. But I think that then you're left with this point of, so what? So do I have to now educate everybody in society, and do I need to rip it out from the data set, because all of the data sets are tainted? How far back do I go? Where do I start to identify in this very messy system and how to fix it? But then we're still coming with this model of a pipeline, a black box, as if there is something identifiable, when actually it's so dispersed in society. And that's what our tension is sometimes. You're you want it to be a neat, almost mechanistic vision of a system that's, like an industrial conveyor belt. But it's not a conveyor belt. Sorry?
Today everyone's becoming a black box. With credit scoring systems and things like that. The black box is in us. We are part of the black box. We contribute to it.
Are an acceleration. If machines are an amplification of our value system, which can be fixed, which depth of the learning should we fix? How deep into the black hole. You mentioned the bottom. I have no idea. Did you throw a stone? Who's gonna throw the stone to feel the bottom and actually figure out how deep we have to fix the value system in order to reflect the values?
Actually, there's a great story by him that when he said like this very famous flash crash 2010, this crash. Yeah. It was. They say it's an automated crash, but who found the bottom? A human trader. A human found the bottom.
The 87 crash.
The 87 crash. Sorry.
Because the flash crash, they never found the bottom.
The 87 crash.
The 87.
Yeah. Yeah, but in terms of how deep you go, the way I think of it is, my father's a particle physicist, and imagine there's a kind of funny thing he has to do when they build a new accelerator. They need to make certain arguments on why it will not destroy the world, right? Why it won't create a black hole? Why and it's funny. I'm like, Dad, how do you argue that? He goes, well, if we could destroy the world, the moon would already be gone. It would be dark.
It just burn out past it.
There's so many things in the universe that are so much more powerful than we can do, and that's what they argue.